Chapter 2, the Communications Planning Process Overview. We're going to look at what problems can communications planning solve and what are the steps in developing an effective communications plan. Consumers today are in control. They do like brands and they like advertising, but they want to know that they're getting something in return. Whether that's being entertained, gaining information, or simply having some interaction, there needs to be some form of reciprocity. All advertising ultimately comes back to one thing. The consumer has a problem that needs to be solved. The problem could be that they need a new car, they need to make dinner, or they simply want to be entertained, as in movie advertising. Regardless of how monumental or how small the problem might be, advertising exists to offer a solution. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you understand what the problem is. Next, it's helpful to understand how the problem came about. In the car example, did the car break down and they urgently need a replacement, or did they just get a new promotion at work and they want an upgrade on their current car? Where you would go to research new cars may be very different if you need a car right now versus looking around to see what else is out there and available. The next thing is to understand where in the problem-solving process are they. This is known as the consumer decision journey, and we're going to spend a lot more time talking about this in the next few lectures. But for now, just know that the places consumers are looking for ad messages is different if they're just in the awareness phase versus if they're looking to buy right this instant. Finally, knowing the people and the places they trust to solve the problem will inform your channel choices. What brands do they trust? What media do they trust? Do they rely on friends and family or industry experts? Media planning has traditionally been thought of as the process of discovering who was the right audience for your message. What were the right places to reach them at precisely what time? And again, this was in a world of push media where we just had to make sure our message was placed in the right place at the right time to the right people we felt comfortable that the message would be received. What communications planning does is ask who is the person I want to speak to. Who are the discrete audiences who I can determine might be in the market for my product right now? What might be the most impactful touch point for that person in that moment? Knowing that someone spends a lot of time on their smartphone on any given day isn't helpful to me if I'm marketing a beauty product and that person relies on beauty magazines to learn about new products. Finally, in communications planning, you become very specific about what stage in the buying process a consumer is in. Are they just learning about the new product, or do they already know what the options are and they're just trying to figure out which is best? Are they ready to buy now? And have they already bought the product and now I need to make sure that they have the best possible experience with my brand? The communications planning process serves as almost a checklist to ensure that you have thought through all of the elements of the problem before arriving at any type of solution. It starts with the brief, and the brief is usually written by the client, but sometimes you'll need to encourage the client to provide this critical information. The brief helps you establish the core business issue that you'll seek to solve through your communications plan. The next step is to understand who you will be talking to. From there, you establish your campaign strategy, understand how communications can play a role, and what message and strategy drivers can lead the communication. All of this will inform your choice of channel selection. So just keep this as kind of the high-level overview, and we're going to go through each step throughout the course. All that's important for right now is that you understand this is the roadmap for point of origin to destination in the communication planning process. The brief shapes what your communications plan will set out to accomplish. It lays out the landscapes and determines what the destination will be and how will success be determined. The first question, the issue we face, defines your core business challenge. This is distinct from your business objective. The business objective establishes what success will be, but the business challenge defines what is in your way of success. What obstacles are preventing consumers from engaging with your brand in the way you need them to? There can be many reasons for this. Once the challenge is defined, brands need to zero in on the necessary response. And response is generally categorized as think, feel, and do. Thinking and feeling address two different attributes, affective and cognitive. Thinking relates to how consumers think about the functional benefits of your brand. These relate to a lot of those characteristics that get proven through research. Feeling is all about the more emotive aspects of the brand. Do I like what your brand stands for? And do I feel like your brand gets me? Think goals are related to cognitive processes. And here are some examples. Now, these are fictional examples, not actual brand claims, but they're just examples. That Crest gets teeth whiter, the iPad Air has the best retina display of any tablet, and Behr paint will cover your walls with just one coat. Feel goals are related to affective aspects. Not all decisions are rational. There is a point at which the consumer decides it just feels right. And again, these are fictional examples, not actual brand claims. That Nike products help me perform better. Bluebell makes the best ice cream. Lucky 7 jeans made me look my best. And BMW is the ultimate driving machine. Do is a little trickier. Very often, do is simply to get the consumer to buy your brand. But that shouldn't be the assumed goal. There are many other things that consumers can do to ultimately lead to sales. Don't assume that the consumer will go from awareness to purchase without taking some other steps along the way. This is the trickiest part of the brief because it begins to address what role communications will play in addressing the challenge. Basically, what you're trying to do here is move away from thinking about simply shouting your brand message from the rooftops and hoping people will listen, and more about how you can leverage the promotional P to have an impact. All of these examples address how communications can fit into the consumer's life and spur some kind of interaction with our brand. To get our brand loyals talking about our brand, to encourage users to write reviews, and communicate with users when they are in a situation where our brand can help them. There are different ways to define your target audience. Demographics are basic descriptors such as age and gender. Psychographics go a bit deeper and get into people's attitudes, lifestyles, and beliefs. Today, we can go even deeper into people's actual behaviors, what they buy, where they buy, and what they've searched online for. Each of the stages will be addressed in separate chapters, but they all work together to provide the guide rails that will ultimately inform your channel selections. A good strategy helps you identify a sustainable advantage against your competitors. The role of the communications will define where the consumer may be in the mindset to receive your message, and the message and strategy drivers frame what will be said and in what context. The final step is channel selection. The Comms Point tool helps to guide this selection based on the consumer response and expert advice. Some fundamental principles will get laid out to help in making these decisions, even if you don't have the tool itself. Before moving on, it's helpful to understand who makes these decisions for brands. In the advertising world, there are 6 major advertising holding companies. They are WPP, Omnicom, Publicis, Dentsu Aegis, IPG, and Havas. Each of these major holding companies are networks of companies that manage a variety of aspects of the business: creative development, media buying, data and analytics, branding, public relations, social media, you name it, and they have a company that specializes in it. The media planning agencies all originated as media planning departments within a full-service agency. And at the end of the 90s, media companies began pooling together all of their ad dollars into a single company to leverage the strength of their buying. It also allowed them to pitch media-only business. Prior to whoever won the creative duties, the media went with them. Now agencies were pitching just the media portion of the business. Coca-Cola and Procter & Gamble were the first large advertisers to put all of their media planning duties under one roof, regardless of where the creative assignment resided. Primarily, the comms planning decisions are made within these media planning agencies. Each overarching holding company has smaller holding companies that oversee a variety of media planning agencies. These are the major holding companies, but know that there can be numerous media planning agencies under those umbrellas. Let me know if you have any questions so far.